things, because it's Tony's night. And without further ado, I'll give you the floor, Tony. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, I'm Tony Randle, and I'm standing as an independent candidate, non-party aligned independent candidate for the Takapū Northern Ward. I'm standing because the Northern Ward needs a strong voice in these times of change. We are, different parts of Wellington are different. Up here in the north, we are a growth suburb. We are the area where the city plans to put a lot of new people. And that's because we've always been a growing suburb, we've been a newer suburb, and we've had the green fields as well. I want to ensure that as that happens, that the city supports that growth with investment in transport, in water infrastructure, in green spaces, so that we can keep growing and we can keep the level of amenity, the level of how nice it is to live here. I think we need to ensure that we don't get into the trap we did with our library last time. Yes, we've got a lovely new library in Waitaui, but people forget that Johnsonville got that library when the city finally did an assessment and found the old library was 1/4 the size it should have been for the population it served. And so we can't afford to have that with infrastructure. We've just had the storms, and our stormwater is at capacity, and if we're going to have more people and more concrete, then we need to be sure that we are not going to get flooded out. Also, the district plan targets large areas of Tawa and Johnsonville for high density apartment housing. We're talking 6 and 7 stories. We need to ensure that when those people come, and if they build those buildings, that there's green spaces, that there are parks provided for the children to live there. I mean, Johnsonville is already short of, central Johnsonville is already short of a good green space park. We need another park, and the same applies to Tawa as well. If they overbuild that, we need to be sure there's going to be a place, and that needs to be found before the buildings go up. The community facilities and the sports facilities are similar under pressure. I mean, we can take the growth. We've been growing for a while. We welcome it, new people, but it has to be supported properly. And then, of course, need to get that Johnsonville Mall. Oh my goodness! Talk about
Did you
saga.
really want to say that?
Yeah.
Can't make it happen, but the city does make a difference as to whether it happens or not. And back in 2006, one of the first things that I did, big things I did, was to actually have the Residents Association do a petition in support of the developer. And we got over 1,000 signatures that says, yes, we want them all built. We want the developer to come down and rip up our centre and rebuild it. Didn't happen because the city got in the road back then. I'll make sure that doesn't happen again if I get in. On the wider scheme, because the council is about the whole city as well, I want to change the council's priorities back to focusing on the core infrastructure. I think that's been put aside amongst a number of other projects, convention centres, cycle plans. The core infrastructure in the central has got to come first, and we need to know that they're going to be supported before we deal with the other stuff. Because we can't just keep raising rates to deal with each additional crisis. But how we do things is also important. The City Council needs to be more democratic in public engagement. It needs to work harder towards informing affected residents. It can't just put a big plan up on a website and then wait for people to find it and respond. People don't know. People need to know that something is happening to their outside their property, be it a roundabout change, a road blockage, people need to know, and the council needs to work harder. It also needs to listen and accept feedback, because sometimes when the feedback says no or not yet, that's what the council should do. It shouldn't always listen and acknowledge and address the submissions and then keep going. And the council needs to take a lead in change, not delegate it to others, as it's done with Let's Get Wellington Moving. I simply can't believe we've managed to delegate the rebuilding of our CBD to a bunch of expensive, and I have to say, slow-acting consultants. I mean, $121 million in the next 18 months to write a business case. I mean, our bus service hasn't had that much investment in the last 20 years, and yet all we're going to get out of that is more paperwork that will say we need light rail. And councillors and council need to be more accessible to residents. Finally, the council needs to champion the city to government, not the other way around. I'm standing as an independent, non-party aligned candidate for council, partly because I can see that the government interference in our direction is too strong. And I want it to be the council's voice to be from us to them, not them coming and saying why we should do what the government has just outlined in its latest policy or planning statement. So who am I? I'm actually a long-time resident, but this is a big suburb and many people don't know me. For almost 30 years ago, my wife and I chose the Northern Suburbs to look for a house to have a family. And eventually we found a house that we could afford. You know, the most expensive house you could afford is what you buy in North Wellington. And we raised a family with 3 kids. I say 3 kids, they're all adults now. And they're here with me. Could you stand up, please? So Jennifer, meet you. They're here with us, so thank you. Johnsonville became our home, and you know we love it, and I love it. It was a good choice. We didn't move on. Professionally, I'm a business analyst. I've had a number of jobs. I've been a manager. I've led teams. I've led large projects. I've written multi-million-dollar business cases. I bring some skills to this job so that I can ask and find little questions and then get them answered. I've also had 20 years of community service, largely through the Residents Association. I'm the president of the Johnsonville Community Association, and I'm also a trustee on the Johnsonville Community Trust. I've had a few involvements of lots of things. A lot of them are pretty small. A couple of the big ones, we got the roading improvements around central Johnsonville done. The city wouldn't proceed without the mall proceeding. And it wasn't until we said, look, just spend your part of the money. And eventually with the pressure they did. And so we've got our upgraded roads, except on Moorfield Road. That's supposed to be paid for by when the mall comes. I'm not sure if you know. But that was a success. I also led the charge when the new bus design wanted to put a big bus interchange in Johnsonville, the biggest one in the city. And we raised this issue with the residents, and they said, no. The regional council got 6,000 submissions, but over a third of them were from Northern Suburbs to say, we like it as it is, and that's why the bus routes are essentially the same as they used to be. And we avoid the bus debacle with interchanges and people not finding buses and that sort of stuff. Haven't managed to sort the driver issue, but you know, that was a win. And more recently, been involved with the district plan. But being involved with the district plan has been really frustrating because the city listens less than they used to. That's one of the reasons why I'm standing. Because I know that they need to be made. There needs to be a voice at that table that says you need to listen, and sometimes you need to stop. You can probably pick up that I'm a bit of a pragmatist, a bit of a bread and butter councillor really. I support changes when they're needed for growth, but the change must be economically, socially and environmentally sustainable, and it must be with appropriate consultation and council accountability. The key question for me is, why do residents pay rates? And the main thing they pay rates for is the services below the ground and above the ground that we all need. I want to work for you to keep the main thing the main thing. I also want to be personally accessible. I want to get out and about and connect with you. I want to work and sort out the real issues that individuals have. I want to be that accessible. In fact, when I reach out, there's some amazing stuff happens around the suburbs. Now, our suburbs look like there's nothing happening until you go to places like this, the collective community hub. At lunchtime, you find on Thursdays there's a free lunch. I could say there's a cute collective lunch, but it's actually free. And you find students coming in here and studying for free. There are clubs all over the place that are doing interesting stuff, from craft to sports. People just get together and do their thing. This is what suburbs are all about. And so it looks like there's nothing happening, but actually there's a lot happening. So I want to make sure that I connect with those and I get the support where it's needed. But I do need help to get elected. So I ask, if you want to support an independent councillor, please contact me, as I don't have a big party machine behind me out, and none of the independent councillors do. So I could do with a hand, to door knock, to deliver leaflets, to just help with signs. And even if it's a matter of saying I'd like to put some pamphlets around my neighbourhood, I really appreciate that support. But most of all, I need you to vote for me. I need you to vote for Tony Randle as number one, because I really am keen to have a go at this job and see what I can do as your councillor. Thank you very much.